The bells of Saint Ephratha's monastery rang through the thick morning mist, calling the monks to matins. Brother Anselm shuffled into the cold stone library moments after the others, his candle flickering in protest as he ducked under the archway. Dust motes danced like spirits in the amber light. He had barely started his daily inspection of the scriptorium shelves when he noticed it. A book he had never seen before, sitting atop the ancient lectern usually reserved for sacred texts. It was beautiful. A large folio bound in red leather that looked both new and ancient. The gold leaf shimmered unnaturally, as if it breathed. The first page bore a stunning illumination. A burning village, people screaming in gold and crimson ink. Below it, written in Latin, the date of the next day, April 3rd, 1311. Anselm frowned. It had not been there the night before. He was sure of it. He was the last to leave the library, as always. And yet, here it sat. Brother Matthias, he called softly, hoping the older monk might explain this strange gift. No answer. The library remained still. Anselm turned another page, another illustration, this one of a mountain collapsing into the sea, dated a week from now. Each page held a different scene of chaos, followed by scripture-like Latin text. There was no title, no author's name, only a final page at the back, which read, "He who sees but does not believe shall witness the end unfold." That evening, smoke was seen rising from the nearby village of Edric's Hollow. By nightfall, it was gone. Anselm did not sleep. Brother Anselm watched the smoke from Edric's Hollow curl into the morning sky. Rumors spread swiftly through the cloister. Lightning had struck a granary. Flames had leapt from roof to roof, and the whole village had been consumed before the fire could be stopped. 5 dead, dozens homeless. The illuminated manuscript rested in the abbot's study now, under lock and key. Anselm had reported it, of course, but not the prophecy. Not yet. He hadn't wanted to seem mad. Still, doubt clung to him like a wet cloak. Coincidence, he told himself. It had to be. Medieval villages burned all the time. The artwork had only resembled the disaster. It wasn't proof. But the second page, Anselm couldn't forget it. The mountain falling into the sea. He knew of only one such cliff within 200 miles, St. Bartholomew's Point, a coastal pilgrimage site carved into a narrow rock formation above the sea. He studied the date. 7 days. That night, as others chanted psalms in the chapel, Anselm crept into the abbot's study. He picked the lock, an old trick he had learned as a novice, and carefully opened the drawer. The manuscript glowed faintly in the moonlight. He flipped ahead. Page 5 showed black birds circling over the monastery itself. A shrouded figure stood beneath them, holding a book. His breath caught. The figure wore robes like his own. For the first time, Anselm felt something colder than skepticism. He felt watched. Behind him, the wind moved, though the window was shut. 3 days passed, and Brother Anselm remained silent. He returned to his chores, tended the garden, and copied scripture with steady hands. But his thoughts drifted always to the manuscript. The image of St. Bartholomew's Point collapsing haunted his mind. It felt like a threat carved in gold. On the 4th day, he asked permission to deliver herbs to a coastal priory, an errand that would bring him close to the cliff. Abbot Severine, ever trusting of Anselm's devotion, granted it without question. The journey was cold and wet, the sea wind biting through his cloak. When he reached the pilgrimage site near dusk, he stood on the narrow path overlooking the churning waves below. The cliff face had deep fissures running through it, more than he remembered from his last visit. A stone cross at the edge leaned ever so slightly toward the sea. He knelt beside it and ran his fingers through the earth. Loose, brittle. A pair of children skipped nearby, pilgrims from the village. Their parents were praying by the shrine. Anselm's stomach turned. He turned back briskly toward the priory and found the head friar, Father Lucian. "You must close the cliff path," Anselm said without preamble. "Now, it's not safe." Lucian raised an eyebrow. "You're certain?" "No," Anselm admitted, "but I have reason to believe it will fall." Lucian stared at him for a moment too long. Then, with a nod, he stepped outside and began shouting for the others to move away. Anselm remained at the window. The cliff didn't fall that night. It fell the next morning. By the time Brother Anselm returned to the monastery, word of the cliff's collapse had spread like wildfire. No one had died, thanks to the early warning, but many called it a miracle. Some whispered that Anselm had known. He deflected every question with practiced humility, but inside he was unraveling. That night, sleep evaded him. He sat on his cot, staring at the ceiling, replaying each image from the manuscript in his mind. Had it truly predicted the disaster? Or was he now shaping events by reacting to them? At dawn, he went again to the abbot's study, this time with permission. Abbot Severin welcomed him in, sensing Anselm's restlessness. "You've been troubled," the abbot said, unlocking the drawer. "The villagers speak of your warning. They wonder how you knew." "I didn't," Anselm said. "Not truly." The manuscript lay still, as if sleeping. But when Severin placed it on the desk, the cover creaked open of its own accord. Both men stepped back. A single page turned with unnatural grace. A new illumination had appeared overnight, one neither of them had seen before. It depicted the monastery itself, shrouded in mist, with its bell tower cracked and broken. Below the image, April 10th, 1311. "That's 5 days from now," Severin whispered. Anselm's eyes narrowed. He could make out tiny figures fleeing into the woods, monks, robed and faceless. One figure remained behind, kneeling before the tower's ruin. A lone candle burned beside him. "Do you think we should evacuate?" Severin asked, voice tight. Anselm didn't answer. He was staring at the candle. It was the same one he kept at his bedside. The candle by his bedside flickered violently that night, though there was no draught. Brother Anselm watched its flame dance, heart pounding. He had told no one about the manuscript's latest image, not even Brother Matthias, his closest confidant. The monastery's bell tower stood firm by moonlight, its silhouette unchanged. But the image lingered in his thoughts, impossible to ignore. He needed answers. At midnight, he crept back to the library. The scriptorium was empty, cloaked in silence. The manuscript remained on the abbot's desk, untouched since that morning. Still, it felt alive, humming softly as Anselm approached. He placed a hand on its cover. Warm. The pages turned without effort, as if guided by unseen hands. Beneath the next prophecy, a painting of ravens circling the monastery, was an inscription Anselm hadn't noticed before. "Speak where echoes do not reach, and he shall answer." A riddle or a warning? His mind raced. Echoes. The old catacombs beneath the monastery were so muffled by stone, sound barely carried there. Few ever went down, just storage, bones of long-forgotten brothers, and a persistent smell of earth and damp. Anselm fetched a lantern and descended. The stairs spiraled into cold silence. He walked past crumbling relics and clay urns, deeper, until even the sound of his footsteps seemed swallowed. He stood still, heart in his throat. "Who wrote the book?" he asked aloud. "Nothing." He tried again, quieter. "What do you want?" Then, so faint he wasn't sure it was real, a whisper. "You already know." The flame of his lantern sputtered, then went out. Brother Anselm fled the catacombs with the cold breath of the whisper still clinging to his neck. His lantern remained dark, and by the time he reached the main hall, Dawn was bleeding across the stained glass windows. He hadn't slept, but he couldn't rest. He needed to see the manuscript again. When he returned to the abbot's study, the door was ajar. Inside, Abbot Severin stood over the desk, lips pressed in a tight line. The manuscript was open again, but not to the ruined tower. A different page now lay exposed, one Anselm had not seen. This time, the illustration was subtle, a hand resting on a wooden desk, the edge of a brown robe, and just visible in the margin beside the image, a name, scratched in small, uneven Latin script. Anselmus, his own name. He stepped back involuntarily. Severin turned to him. "Did you write this?" he asked quietly. "No," Anselm whispered. "I swear I didn't." The abbot studied him for a long moment. "Then someone wants us to believe you did." He closed the book gently, as if afraid it might bite. "There is something unholy about this text," Severin continued. "It reveals more than it should, yet it offers no guidance, only fear." Anselm nodded. "But someone did write it. Someone here." The abbot's gaze didn't waver. "Then find them." As Anselm left the study, he realized he had never felt less certain of himself. The book seemed to know him. Perhaps it knew who he would become, not just who he was. And perhaps that was the true warning. For 3 days, Brother Anselm questioned every monk in the monastery, discreetly, carefully. No one admitted to seeing the manuscript before its arrival. No one recognized the hand that had penned the prophecies. And yet, a tension had settled over the cloister like winter frost. Whispers followed him in the corridors. Some monks avoided his gaze altogether. On the 4th morning, the bell tower cracked. Just a hairline fracture along its base, but it was enough. Panic gripped the monastery. Abbot Severin ordered an immediate evacuation to the nearby forest glade. All but 2 monks obeyed. Brother Matthias, who refused to leave the chapel, and Anselm, who returned to the abbot's study. The manuscript was waiting for him. He opened it with trembling hands. The final page had appeared. It showed the bell tower just as before, only now it was mid-collapse. Dust and stone in the air, figures fleeing. And at the center, a monk kneeling before the ruin, arms raised, the shrouded figure again. Only now the face was visible. It was his own. Anselm touched the page, heart racing. And then he understood. The book had never been written by someone. It had been written through someone. It recorded what would be because it was bound to what must be. A mirror of fate, one that reflected and ensured its own predictions. He looked out the window. The sky was darkening. Thunder rumbled. A single raven landed on the sill. Anselm lifted the manuscript, tucked it under his arm, and stepped into the storm. When the tower fell, he was already gone. Only the manuscript remained, open to a blank page.